My name is Adeline Rudolph. I play Bobbie Jo Song on Hellboy Creator. Awesome.
Amazing. So just to start off,
Yes.
so one of my favorite questions to ask, especially looking at women who are in films that have a horror theme, horror tends to lend itself well to like having feminist characters. You know about like the Last Girl Standing, and I know that this version of Hellboy is leaning more into the horror genre with like a little bit more violence. How well, first of all, do you think that your character is a feminist character? And how do you think that Hellboy leans into having like feminist characters and not feminist messages, but like feminism overall within the story?
Yeah. I do think I would say, yeah, that she's a feminist. I mean, she's a rookie BPRD agent. She's extremely intelligent, very studious. She goes on this journey. She holds her own in this movie. Of course, because she's done so much research and hasn't ever had to do any field work, her first adventure with Hellboy, which will be this movie, she's a little bit in over her head at times. She's maybe at times a little naive with what's on the page versus what's happening in real life. But having said that, she's pretty strong. I mean, yes, in the fight sequences, she does, get protected by Hellboy and she does hide behind him, rightfully so.
Yeah.
But yeah, she holds her own. She's a wonderful, powerful character who also goes on her own journey in this paranormal world.
Do you think that her strengths are? It sounds like her strengths are more so her intelligence,
Yes.
versus like physical strengths.
Yes,
So
I
how
would
does
say
she
that.
like manifest and show that?
Yeah. I think it's in the way that she speaks and she talks. She kind of fills uh, Hellboy in on even their own missions and what their cargo is and she's. You see it throughout the script. She asks questions, is curious about things, wants to know um, how to do things more practically, and then you also see it in the way that she wants to go on this adventure. So you can see that it's not just, she wants to actually be able to back everything that she's learned with experience, which I think is a smart thing to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
For sure. Yeah.
I have some. So in the Hellboy comics and in BPRD, one of the themes that is recurring is the idea that Hellboy, when you switch over to his perspective, is almost in a completely different world from the BPRD members. All this weird supernatural stuff happens to him. The BPRD people kind of get their feet wet in it, but not nearly as much. And whenever he is with a BPRD agent, they sort of get dragged into the bizarre reality that he's forced to constantly contend with all these weird supernatural things coming out of the woodwork to harass him about his destiny and weird stuff like that. And in those instances, in those issues, it goes out of its way to provide the BPRD agent as being the human perspective. And from their perspective, when you switch over, you see just how alien and messed up it is when they are thrust into that almost demi-monde that he lives in. How do you, when you're portraying this character, how do you bring that into the film? Is there anything specific that you kind of channel when you're trying to do that? Does it include that element?
Yeah, I love your question. I think for Bobbie, she absolutely. I think more so than the fact that she is human, because we do have, of course, Tom Ferrell, who yes did sell his soul, but I think for her it's because she is so new to field work. This fresh-eyed perspective on this new world and this adventure or epic that Hellboy finds himself in becomes quite apparent, right? You definitely do have that contrast of like this is a different world to the one that Bobbie Jo kind of grows up in and is familiar with. Um, yeah. What what would you mind bringing back to the question?
Yeah, I'm just trying to say, like, how does your character kind of
Yes.
cope with that alienness? Do
Yes,
they go out
with
of their way to
fascination.
show?
With fascination. So she is actually very because she's so curious and so excited when they actually come across Tom Ferrell, she in some ways is very much the instigator of wanting to follow him on this journey. She's again, I think she goes through this journey of fascination and maybe it's a little bit of naivete at first, but then also an appreciation for the things that she knows.
So from her perspective, it starts out as being fresh-faced, and that kind of throws the horror into relief as it creeps in. Is that what you're saying? Because it's supposed to be a horror movie, right?
Yeah. Yes.
So, okay.
Yeah, I think.
So really the horror is your horror, so to speak, because you're seeing it all.
Yes. Well, yes. However, I think it's also horror for the other characters as well. Hellboy goes on this journey in the same way too. I understand that he is Hellboy, but I think Jack made him very human in some ways. And because we have a younger Hellboy, we've got less things under his belt. So he's kind of going through this journey.
He's young.
He's a younger Hellboy this time around.
Okay, so he doesn't have that stoicism.
So he has, he's a nuance, you know, so for us, it's like, yes, there's my aspect, but I feel like in some ways Hellboy and Bobbie Jo go on this journey together, genuinely. He is also learning as he goes in this movie.
So he's not jaded. Well, that's good. I mean, we haven't seen that in any Hellboy movie. We've seen macho Hellboy blowing stuff up. We've seen action movie Hellboy. But this is young.
This
Hellboy.
is a young,
fresh. This is very fresh.
Cool. Yeah. I love the horror aspect of it. What was it like the shooting? Was there sets or parts where it just felt like naturally horror? You didn't have to act at all. You know?
Yeah. What was really great was it was a very practical set. So, you know, having read The Crooked Man, you know, it's gruesome, it's grotesque. There's some really fun elements. And there's this one sequence which we'll get to see at the panel today. That was one of my favorite days on set to see, because I didn't know if they were going to CGI that sequence, but they did it in person. You'll know more. This will all make sense once we've seen that clip. But I actually got to watch this sequence happen, and then it's, you know, Hellboy's and Bobbie Jo's and Tom Ferrell's reaction to what is happening. And yeah, it was gross and amazing and horrific. And I'm happy that we're staying true to the horror genre of the comic and trying to bring that onto the screen this time around. Yeah.
I really like you were talking about Hellboy, how he was a lot younger. I know that this film is also like a reset to like the Hellboy universe as far as like how it is cinematically. And for you as an actor and being a part of this world, what new storytelling devices or explorations do you feel like you were given, tools you were given to explore this story of Hellboy as a younger Hellboy versus like the older Hellboy that we have already known?
What tools? I mean, number one tool, and super grateful, which is really cool and doesn't always happen with these kind of things with big IP, is we stuck to the comic. It's a really big thing to draw inspiration from and kind of go back to. That was probably the number one tool, to be honest. Like being given this, and then also having a script that actually reflected the comic. Yes, Bobbie Jo is a new character, I know that, but it's nice that because Mike has co-written this script, it's beautiful to see how he interwove Bobbie into the story. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah.
You're rolling?
Yes, we're rolling.
Great. So we're doing a viral feud. We have beef.
Can you tell me what your name is first?
My name's Jefferson White. No, I'm just a
beef
fan.
starts here.
I'm just a fan. I'm a fan, and I asked Addie for a signature, and she said, "Get out of my face, you nobody."
Wow.
I can't do it, Jeff. My heart breaks.
I know. I'm sorry. She's too nice to do a viral feud.
No, we can try.
I keep walking around just saying "fuck you" to everybody, hoping to start a beef, and everybody's too polite.
Everyone's like,
You know what?
Just go down to the exhibition hall.
Yeah.
That's right. You know, I'm gonna start a viral beef right now with World Hunger. Fuck World Hunger.
Yeah, fuck World Hunger. Let's do this.
Fuck war.
Yeah. No, we're not fuck the world, but World Hunger.
No, and fuck war as a
fuck war.
concept.
Yes.
That's right. We're starting beefs left and right.
Okay.
I love it.
Fuck
But
being
not with
thirsty.
me.
Yes.
Not with you, I guess.
Okay.
I thought we could have a viral beef,
Yes,
but we're
we
both
can't,
far
we
too
can't.
polite.
Yes.
Who could we pull into this though?
We got a beef with somebody.
We can be.
Your publicist is right over there. Do we start a beef with your publicist?
Should we bring Jonah?
She's
into
got a
this?
beef with somebody, and that feels safest. This has been a viral beef. We tried our best.
Which we had attempted.
What else goes
well,
viral?
Tell us about your character.
I played. You don't have to do this. You just
No,
went
no.
through this whole thing. 2 mics.
I'll take that.
I love it.
I will.
You just went through the whole thing.
I
Does your
appreciated the attempt. I was
Yeah.
just too scared.
yeah?
To
Does your character have any beefs? with anybody?
Isn't she a jerk? Now that she's gone, we can finally talk about her behind her back. Just kidding.
Wait
She's
till
so
she
nice.
walks away first.
I'm hoping
God,
she'll
she's
overhear,
right
so she'll come
there.
back and punch me in the face.
Yeah. You just
feel like that
you're
would
like,
go
I just
viral.
want to fight with someone. I just
I
want
know.
to fight.
We've been so polite all day. It's time to start getting real. I'm Jefferson White. I play Tom Ferrell in Hellboy the Crooked Man. Tom is a guy who, at a young age, made a very bad decision and sold his soul to the devil in exchange for a lucky cat bone. And now, 20 years later, he's come back to his hometown to try to get his soul back.
Yes.
And he very luckily bumps into Hellboy and Bobbie Jo, who help him in his effort to get his soul back.
So you got a feud with the devil then, huh?
Exactly right. A feud with the devil as represented by the Crooked Man.
So, can I start off with a fun question?
Please.
If you, now we're going to talk about your character, because I thought that your character was fascinating, but if you were to sell your soul for the devil, what would you sell your soul for?
I feel like at a certain point, everybody likes to talk a big game. I feel like at a certain point, it's a moral imperative to sell your soul for $1 billion, $1 billion, and then spend that trying to help people. If you don't sell your soul to the devil for $1 billion, you're being selfish. You know what I mean? You're being selfish.
So, but does that mean that you get your soul? Will your soul be redeemed back if you actually?
That's a good
use
point,
your
'cause you do a lot of
ability?
games.
I feel
You
like-
might be hosed. That's a good point.
I'm pretty sure you're host, because the question becomes, are you spending it all to do nice things in order to try to win your soul back, which is selfish.
Kind of selfish.
Yeah,
And they say
exactly.
in the movie, we say, and in the Bible, I think they say that it's easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to get into heaven.
Yes.
So you're kind of fucking yourself twice if you sell your soul for $1 billion. 'Cause I don't think many of these billionaires are going to heaven.
No. Well, it's
You know?
it's very difficult to be a good person and a billionaire.
Pretty
Yeah.
sure that's a foregone conclusion.
Yeah. I think by being a billionaire, you're sort of proving that you don't get to go to heaven. I know, $1
You
billion.
had to screw somebody.
How did you get that? Exactly. You
had
can't
to
have
screw
got that.
somebody.
Yeah.
I know, sure.
You have to have exploited somebody along the way. So basically, I would sell my soul to the devil for, look, and as long as we're making demands, I feel like we're in the captain's seat. Let's say 10 billy, a clean 10 billy, and then I'll spend it on really nice stuff. And if I have to go to hell forever, that's fine. Think of all the people you would have rescued along the way, you know?
Yeah.
It's just true. It's
Yeah.
true. So on the matter of Tom Ferrell, this is a horror movie where I guess they're playing up the horror element
Yeah.
more than any previous Hellboy. The
Yes.
other Hellboys, a lot of them, he was macho. He was this hero that fought things. In this one, there's more fear. Hellboy's younger. How do you play into the horror element? Since obviously your character's the one who sold his soul.
Yeah, Tom he's in way over his head. So at a young age, he fell in love with a witch, which just sort of starts a great horror formula right there. At a young age, he fell in love with a witch and he was sort of beguiled. And now, as he comes back to try to get his soul back from the devil, he's in way over his head. Like, this is not familiar territory. He's trying to conjure the devil back in order to sort of renegotiate the terms of this deal. And I think that, in some ways, Tom is the kind of everyman, the person who's not as familiar with the dark dealings, who gets swept up in this kind of complicated dark saga. So Tom does a lot of seeing things he's never seen before, being attacked by things he's never seen before, sort of stumbling through a very frightening world
Right,
and trying to stay alive.
Because in Hellboy, when you switch between Hellboy and BPRD, classically, it's almost like he lives in a completely different world. He's in this weird demi-monde where, like, he sees the ghosts, the eyes in the pictures follow him. He sees things nobody else sees. Weird supernatural things accost him that nobody else runs into.
Yeah.
But whenever the agents are with him, they get dragged into that kind of warped carnival aura that he carries with him, and
Yes.
they see weird shit that they don't see when they're on their own. So your character has that human point of view, because the horror, classically Hellboy, I guess they're humanizing him more now because he's younger, but the horror is really from the BPRD agent's perspective in the comics, because they're the normal people that are seeing all this weird shit. Hellboy's not in the same kind of danger. So that's mainly your point of view, I guess, your character. I asked Adeline about it, and she said that it was more you because it was very much centered around your character having the human perspective.
Yeah.
So yours is yours perspective. Would you say that it is the horror more or less?
I think so. Yeah, this is really folk horror. So he like Tom from a young age experienced a little bit of this. He dabbled in witchcraft and that has cost him his soul. And now I think he's spent the rest of his life I think he saw a glimpse of that and he's been trying to keep it at arm's length. He's been trying to keep that darkness at bay. He's very proud of not having used this magic cat bone his whole life. He doesn't want his soul to be damned, so he's tried to avoid using this bone. He doesn't want to be a witch. So he's tried very hard to keep this stuff at arm's length. And now as an adult, he realizes he's going to have to dive into it to get his soul back. And I think you put it very well. It feels like Hellboy kind of has one foot in each of these worlds. He's half human, he's half demon. And it feels like in order to get his soul back from the devil, Tom Ferrell has to go through Hellboy, and Hellboy sort of protects him as they go deeper and deeper down the rabbit hole,
Yeah, because in most Hellboy and BPRD things, when they join him on a mission, they get smashed.
Oh yeah, big time. That's a precarious position.
And killed, and horrible things happen to them that don't happen to BPRD people elsewhere. Because if you get close to Hellboy, you're playing in the deep water, so you're doing this journey with him. Hellboy is supposed to be younger in this. Is he more humanized through your character? Does he relate to your character?
Yeah, I think Hellboy always kind of contains that contradiction. He always is a little human. He's a good listener. He's very non-judgmental.
And not macho. But in the older ones, when he's older, he's very stoic. Is he stoic on this one, or is he more like in the earlier books?
I think that Jack Kesey, who plays Hellboy, really contains both of these things. I think he's a very empathetic, compassionate actor, and he's an athlete who played hockey and boxed, and he's sort of a tough guy. So I think he contains that contradiction, and I think Hellboy does too. I think he's who you want to be next to in the fight because he's going to step in front of you, with the hand of doom. But he also is an amazing listener, and he's very non-judgmental. I think for Tom, he's scared of this shit. He feels like he's made some bad decisions. He's ashamed of the decisions he's made in his life. And Hellboy accepts him very easily and sort of takes him under his wing very easily. So yeah, I think this Hellboy maybe he's not as jaded. Maybe he's not as hardened by the world.
That never occurred to me, but you're right. Thinking back on the comics, Hellboy really isn't judgmental. Even when he's older, he really isn't judgmental.
Yeah, whatever your deal is, right? No matter where you're from, no matter what the fuck you've gone through.
No, it didn't
yeah.
occur to me.
Because he's someone that other people judge, right? People look at him and assume things about him. And it feels like his response to that is like, hey, he'll give anybody a chance. No matter how weird you look, no matter where you come from, he'll give you a shot.
Oh, this is so good. So good.
I think we're told to wrap up.
Oh, okay.
One more.
Oh,
Sure.
we're told to wrap up? Okay, I'm sorry. I could do this.
Did you have one more question?
No, I'm done nerding out. I need to be respectful of your time.
No, it's amazing. You're a real Hellboy fan.
I own it all.
Oh, that's incredible. Did you get to meet Mike?
No, not yet.
He's coming.
I have
That's
the
amazing.
paperbacks, and I have the big scary ones that are hardback.
Oh yeah, the big BPRD volumes
that you
too,
can
and
club a
yeah,
seal to death with.
it was amazing. Well, I'll get out of your way so you can meet Mike because it feels like
I'm Die Hard.
It's going to be a hit piece. I know it.
It always starts like this.
Yeah.
Oh, you guys are starting with me.
Yeah.
And I can start.
Maybe I'm going out on a limb, but I've read Hellboy pretty much all of it so much that I think I kind of got a feel of his transformation as a character over time, to when he's in the BPRD and then leaves, and the kind of warped carnival atmosphere that follows him, where supernatural stuff gravitates to him, almost like he lives in a different demi-monde from everybody else. How have you ever managed to successfully capture that feel in any sort of movie format that you tried to do? I mean, I know there have been past movies where he was kind of an action hero who was kind of macho.
Well, I mean, I didn't do any of that stuff. Right. That I was, I in various places I was able to have my input, and Del Toro and I spent years talking about how to do Hellboy. But it's always going to be the filmmaker's version of my material. So, and my feeling is I'm not a movie maker. I mean, I will suggest things, and if the filmmaker says I can't do that, or we should do it some way else, some other way, or it doesn't work, that wouldn't work in a film. You're the filmmaker. Same way when somebody wants to do a Hellboy toy, I'm the toy maker. Hellboy wants to, especially something a computer game. I don't make computer games, so I've learned to focus on what I do, which is the comic. And you hope for the best. You hope that you get at least an interesting adaptation of your work. You hope that sooner or later there'll be bits and pieces where you go, oh, they really captured the character here or there. I don't think I ever expected to see this faithful an adaptation of my work. So that's good. You can put that in bold in there.
Is this the most involved you've ever been in that movie?
I've been involved. I mean, with Del Toro, I was involved for years, and I was on set, and I did a lot of the pre-production work. So, in time, that was the most involved that I ever was. But this one, I was involved. Well, even with Del Toro, I was involved day one. But Del Toro wrote the screenplay. He knew what he wanted to do. With this one, when they came to me and said, we're going to do another Hellboy film, I said, it's got to be the Crooked Man. If you want my involvement, kind of stuck my neck out, and it was a little bit of a game of chicken here. It's like, you can make anything you want, you have the rights, but if you want me doing this, interviews and stuff, it's got to be the Crooked Man. Otherwise, not only will I not be doing press, I will be mentioning to anybody who asks, no, I wasn't involved. So that was kind of fun game of chicken there. And they right away, they said, I mean, they were familiar with the Crooked Man story. They said, yes, that'd be great. And Chris Golden, who's written a lot of Hellboy novels and other Hellboy comics, we worked together on the screenplay because I don't know how to write a screenplay. And we beat this thing into shape. We knew it. Almost everything we needed was in the Crooked Man story. But the Crooked Man story is in a lot of ways more the story of Tom than it is of Hellboy. So we brought in a piece from one other Hellboy story, The Chain Coffin, about Hellboy's mother. We brought that in and sort of fit it in where we thought it worked best, rather than having, because you never know how many screenwriters are going to come along after you, and we thought, let's put the pieces together the way we feel the pieces fit best, and then we hand it off, and hopefully somebody won't dismantle this thing entirely, because I've seen it happen. It's happened on other Hellboy movies with the script. People started messing with it, and next thing you know, you've just got a box of parts. We'll assemble a dinosaur. We don't know what it looks like, but we got a head and some stuff that looks like it might be a tail. Trying to figure it out. So we had the skeleton, and it went straight to Brian. So it didn't go through a zillion other. It's the advantage of actually having to do something relatively fast.
Speed is definitely an ally.
Why did it have to be the Crooked Man?
It's my favorite, and I felt that considering the budget we were looking at, the time, it takes place in the woods. There's you have to build a couple old cabins. You don't need a BPRD headquarters. You don't need cities. I've been to Bulgaria. I know you have forests, and I know you have. Basically that's all you needed. You needed a forest and slap up a couple cabins, and you're there, and you take advantage of the mood. I always say darkness is either very, very cheap or actually free.
Yeah.
Don't build a forest and light it. Just use a forest at night. Bring the lights you need to a forest. You don't have to build one. So let's take advantage of the natural stuff you have. And like I said, my favorite story, all my favorite moments are, so many of my favorite moments in Hellboy take place in that story. And they were all doable. It wasn't like, oh yeah, that's my favorite, scene, but you need $20 million to make that scene. It's like, no, you just need to have a person standing, next to a tree.
Nice. Well, Mike, for someone watching this that might not know as much about Hellboy, can you tell us the process you went through creating Hellboy?
Oh yeah, the easy question. Basically, after 10 years of working for Marvel and DC, I just wanted to draw a monster. And I knew what the kinds of stuff I wanted to draw, and it was just a matter of making up a character to be my guy, so I could do the kinds of stories I wanted. I could have done them with a regular person, but I knew I'd be bored drawing a regular person. I'm a horror guy, always have been, and I just wanted to do a parade of horror stories. So I just needed a main character. So I made up this. I had done a drawing of a character it was much more monstrous, but I'd written the name Hellboy on it. And when it came to doing my own thing, I said, what if I clean up that guy, put a coat on him? It's the only name I'd ever made up at the time. And I said, well, it's not the most commercial name, not the most commercial character, but let me at least try, and see. Once I'd like to draw a comic that feels like it's made of all this shit I like. And it just, who knew you'd be doing it for 30 years?
The thought processes of the supernatural powers in Hellboy, I think you do an amazing job of portraying them as being very folkloric and alien, whereas Hellboy has more of a humanized perspective, and he crashes into them. His interaction with like Count Burescu or any of these other, Hecate, they speak differently from the way he speaks. He talks like a normal guy. And a lot of it is very powerfully emotional, not just because of the things that he says, but just what's not said, what he doesn't say. And that really humanizes him and all the people around him. From a humanized perspective, do you think that this movie is more faithful to the person of Hellboy than previous adaptations have been, emotionally speaking?
Yeah, I mean, I've been thinking about that a lot the last 2 days, because so much of what Hellboy isn't in dialogue. It isn't. There's no explanation. He's not explaining his deal, but you see it. It exists in the interaction with other characters. You get the sense of who he is, rather than him sitting down and going, "Oh yeah, I really, it's terrible, and I'm the beast of the apocalypse and all this other shit." He's solving Tom's problems, but the fact that he can relate to Tom and the situations, you feel more about the character than you're actually told. Stop me if I'm not making any sense at the end of the day.
I left Sense behind about an hour ago.
It's great.
This is supposed to be a reset because this is a younger Hellboy. What tools and advantages did that give you in doing kind of like a reset cinematically?
Oh, well, it's great. The original comic is set in the late 50s. It's a period piece, which I loved. And there had been some talk about moving it contemporary, because that's the kind of thing that, they do. In studios, they have to improve on the original, right? We have to make it better or something. And our thing from the beginning was like, no, we want to go back and do the real thing. We want to do it just like the comic book. It has to be the late 50s. This is a younger Hellboy. So what advantages do we have? Well, I don't got to deal with cell phones that ruin every movie.
Social media?
Yeah, but sort of like a bigger advantage maybe is I never thought of it as like a reboot of the character or a reset of the character. I didn't think any of the other movies at all. All I had to look at was the original source material. It became very easy for me. We're adapting this story, just the way you would adapt a story by Stephen King or any other master of the genre. You're adapting this story directly, and we're trying to do it with as much love and authenticity as possible. We're adapting it closely, and we want to keep going back to that. Every time we feel like we're going too far astray or it's turning into something else, it's like, nah, it doesn't want to turn into something else. It wants to be what it is. This is Mike's favorite Hellboy story, and it's a lot of the fans' favorite Hellboy story. It's one of my favorite Hellboy stories.
No pressure.
Let's get it. Let's get it right. Let's get it right.
Have you guys, because there's this arc is like 3 different books within, does this film open up for like a series?
No, this is a single story. The Crooked Man story is a single story. It was split into 3 comics.
Yes,
but it's a single
always
story.
been one story.
And the simplicity of it really, I think, is one of my favorite things about it. It's not a space opera. We're not saving the universe, whatever that means. This is a simple story about simple, ordinary people who are in trouble. And Hellboy is, lucky for them, this big red guy is here to help them with that. So, and I love the simplicity of it. And cinematically, it means we can concentrate on things like making it look cool.
Yeah.
You know, instead of spending 40% of our screen time like explaining a bunch of lore.
Yes. Yeah. That's awesome. Cool.
Thank you both so much.
Thank you.